Hello and welcome to another tutorial by Level Up Networks, your choice for free and comprehensive guides for all your technical needs. Today we're going to talk about 5 cool tricks of how to optimize the performance on your Windows 10. So, enough about that, let's get started. So there we have it, Windows 10, the platform of choice for many users out in the world nowadays. So like I said in the introduction, today I'm going to show you a few tricks of how to optimize your Windows 10 experience. So let's start with how to remove applications from the startup menu. Now, this is a virtual environment, so I don't have many things running, but for many of you that have older systems, or for example laptops, you just want to get cracking really quick with your day, and the last thing you want is to wait for Windows 10 to take very long to load. So the best way to do this is if you right click on the taskbar, so down here, right click, go to Task Manager, and from here you'll see Startup. Now, as I said, from here you won't see very much because I don't have many things installed, but essentially you will probably have quite a list of things to load when you start up. For example, you may have OneDrive, you may have Dropbox, GoTo, Zoom, Teams, and the list goes on. So from here, the quickest way to do it is to right click, and you can enable or disable the startup application. So in this case, I have Skype disabled. Obviously, I have my VirtualBox enabled and the Windows security notifications enabled. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can sort it out by the startup impact. So if you just click on startup impact, it will sort things out by how they impact you when the machine loads for the first time into Windows. So obviously the things you want to disable the most are things that you don't use all the time. Like for example, Skype is something that you don't really need it in the background. If you're not going to use Skype as a telephone system, for example, you just want it for your occasional meeting. So you don't need that to load. The same thing goes with Teams and Dropbox and things like that. You may not want them to load. You may just want to use them as and when you need them. So this will show you how much resources it takes before Windows loads for the first time. Another way to disable the startup items, is if you go to the Start menu itself and you go to Settings, and from here you go to find the settings. So you can just type here Startup. Okay, and there you go, Startup Apps, and you click on it. And here you will also have the same way as you had in the Task Manager. It will list you all the applications, and you can disable them from here by just ticking them on and off. You can also sort them by impact, so startup impact. So for example, let's say we don't want the security settings notification, we disable it, and that is more or less how you do it. Okay. Another thing that takes up a lot of resources when you are using Windows are the background applications. Now, just as the name says, these are applications that will also load when you start Windows, and they will run always in the background, even if you're not using them. So if we go back to Start menu, Settings, and let's search for Background Apps. Here we go. So as you can see here, even though this is quite a fresh install of Windows, I still have quite a few things that by default they are all on. Now this also not only affects your loading times, but it may also affect your disk usage. Now my disk usage is pretty low, but let's say for example this is continuously on 100%. This is a good place to go to unload things from the background applications that make your CPU and your disk usage very high. So here's the things that load for you and that you don't necessarily need. So I'm going to disable the things I don't need. So for example, in a virtual environment like this one, I don't need your phone. I don't need the export console. I don't necessarily care about the weather on my windows. I don't want tips. I don't want Skype to run in the background. I don't need Print 3D. I don't need people. I don't need Paint 3D. I don't have mobile plans for Windows. Now the store, I'll get back to it and I'll tell you why this may or may not be an option for you. So I'll leave this for last. So I don't need as well messaging. I don't need Groove Music, films and TVs, the feedback hub, connecting for this one, I don't need it. The camera on this virtual environment, precisely, I don't need it, but I'll leave it on anyways. And I don't need the 3D viewer. Okay, so the Microsoft Store. So essentially, this is the icon down here to go to the apps. So essentially, what it does is when you're trying to run a program and it may need something to be downloaded, it will go straight to the Microsoft Store and ask you if you want to download it or if you have any updates for these applications, for example. It will do them automatically. So in this case, I don't need it. And also for machines that are very low in specs, like for example, certain Chromebooks, laptops are maybe i3s or less in the processing. Disabling the Microsoft Store is always a good option because it does take quite a bit of you resources. So this is where you would go to disable these. Now you can obviously disable them all in one go, but there's some things you may want to keep. You want to keep probably the help. You may want to leave your emails if you set it up through the Windows email software. If you have Outlook, you don't necessarily need it, so you can disable it as well. But in this case, these are the ones I want to disable on my installation right now. Now another handy trick is moving your profile folders out of your profile. So let's say, for example, you have a very messy desktop where you have hundreds of icons here, you have folders, you have files, you have pictures, videos. Now bear in mind that every time you log in into your Windows user, it needs to load all your desktop, all your videos, all the things you have here before it sort of chills out and lets you proceed with things. Now in my case, like I said, this is a fresh install, so I really don't have much. So downloads, you can see pictures, music, videos. I don't have much. So my profile is very tiny. Now, how do you go and check your profile? Very simple to see if you want to do this. So if you go to this PC, you right click, you go to Properties, then you can go to Advanced Settings System. And here you have it, under Advanced tab, User Profiles. So if you go to click here in Settings, this will load every person's profile that's installed on this particular machine, and it will tell you exactly how much space they're taking. Okay, so like for example, default profile. So this is when you create a new user on this particular machine. There's certain things like desktop icons that will go to the default profile, and this is the information that's stored there. Then I'm logged in as I'm logged in as Level Up Networks. So my profile is 4.29 megabytes. But as you can see, the other one, which is the Level Up Networks, which is the admin and creator, is 503 megabytes. The default user is 326, S-Black 258, and the default administrator one's 300 megs. Okay. Now, they're not too big. Essentially what you want to do is keep profiles under 1 gigabyte. This will keep things running very smooth. So one thing you can do, for example, is move your profile settings out of your profile. What do I mean by this? So here in Quick Access, you have desktop, downloads, documents, pictures, music, and videos. So as I mentioned earlier, when you log into Windows, it needs to load all of these prior to going to your Windows session. So I always tend to move this out of your profile and just put them on your C drive. So let me show you how. So bear in mind that by doing this, please ensure that you're the only one that you use this machine, because otherwise everyone would be able to see your private desktop and downloads and all those type of things. So I don't recommend this in the corporate use of machines, unless it's maybe your company laptop and you're the only one that can use this laptop, then that is absolutely fine. So what I tend to do is, under the C drive, I create a new folder and I just call it profile. Okay, so then we can then go to desktop, for example, and we right click on it. We go to properties, and under here you'll see one of the tabs says location. So at the moment it's saving everything that's on the desktop to see users Level Up Admin desktop. Okay, so obviously these are the things that I put into the desktop. So let's say, for example, I create a shortcut. Let's do that right now. Let's create a shortcut to Windows on my desktop. Okay, so now if I go to my desktop, you'll see the Windows shortcut there. Okay, but not these ones. You don't see these ones because these were installed for all users. So these will be on the public desktop for all users. Okay, so but we want to move this one. So once again, let's right click on desktop. We go to properties, location, click on move. And now we select where do you want to move things. So that's where you go to the C drive, profiles, okay, and just select the folder. Okay, and okay. No, let me backtrack. So actually we're here in the C profile, we need to create the folder. Sorry, forgot to put that. So new folder here. This will be desktop, for example. We go into desktop. There we go. So now it's C profile desktop and okay. So here it tells us the old location was C users Level Up Admin desktop, and now it's moving everything to new location C profile desktop. Okay. So obviously if you're gonna put something that requires to be on these ones, then don't. But 9.9.99999 times out of 10, that won't be the case. So let's put yes. And we'll do the same thing with everything. So properties, then location, move, C, profiles, new folder, downloads. So if you see now, I just created downloads, and this has the standard folder for downloads, but when we created desktop, it was exactly the same as now. But now that we've moved it, it's acquired the same icon that has here. So now when we do downloads, it will also acquire this icon. So let's do that. Select folder. Okay. Yes. Same with documents, properties, location, move, then C drive, profile. See, downloads has the same one. So downloads, new folder, and this was documents. Select folder, okay, and yes, and you get the drift. You do the same thing for every single one. I'll do this now really quickly. So let's do this. Okay, yes. Then finally, music and videos are the only ones that require to be moved still. So profile, new folder, music, select folder, okay, and yes. And now finally videos, properties, location, move, C, profile, videos. Perfect. Alright, so that's all of them. So you can see now that all of these have been moved. You don't see anything really affected. So now if we go to the C drive, profile, desktop, that's my Windows shortcut. Okay. So if we go up here as well, you still see it. It's not disappeared. but all it's doing now, it's moved everything to C profile. So downloads, we have the Chrome setup. Okay, so let's check now my user. So users, level up admin. As you can see now, they have disappeared from here. Okay, so essentially when Windows loads, it won't any longer load this from your profile, so it makes your profile much quicker to load. Obviously it will still load everything, you don't have to worry about that. Now the fourth item I'm going to show you today is how to clear your C drive. So when you delete things, for example, let's delete there now. You can obviously do recycle bin from here, but there's many other things that are hidden that unless you know the exact locations, it won't be easy for you to find. So the best way to do this without having to download any sort of software, like for example CCleaner, is you can use this cleanup software that comes already with Windows 10. So to access that, you go to File Explorer, this PC, and you right click on the C drive. So we go right click and we go to Properties. Okay, and here you can see that we have the option for disk cleanup. So we click on that. Okay, so as of default, it will already automatically pick the internet files. Now bear in mind that these are only taking it from either Edge or Internet Explorer, but if you use another browser like Chrome or Firefox or anything like that, it will not detect them to delete them, and you'll need to do them from the browser or with like a very specific software, like I said before, CCleaner. Another thing to bear in mind, that a lot of these options here are also restricted to your own profile. So for example, if I clear my temporary internet files, it won't delete them from all users, it would just be myself. So essentially you would have to go to every user and do it for them, or you can also go into their user folder and delete them from there. So by default, as I was saying, it will put ticks on downloaded program files, temporary internet files, and then that's about it, your thumbnails. So we want to delete also the temporary files, we want to delete the recycle bin, the delivery optimization files. Okay, so as you can see here, we can clean up to 38.7 megabytes. Now, obviously this is not a lot, but like I mentioned earlier, this is a fresh install of Windows, so it will not have a lot. Another thing you can do through this application is that you can clean up system files. So for example, let's say that you've had this machine for many years and you've been installing Windows updates, periodically, and there's many updates that along with time they become obsolete, but they don't get uninstalled. So the way to uninstall them is through here. So if you go down here where it says clean up system files, you click here, and then what it's going to do in the background is going to start searching for all these system files that can be removed safely. Now on my machine, because it's, like I said, a virtual environment and a very fresh install, this will be quite quick, but on your machine it might take a bit longer. But no, nonetheless, look at that, we can now clean up to 8.96 gigabytes, so almost 9 gigabytes compared to the 34 or the 37 megs we had before. So let's go ahead and select the Windows Update Cleanups. Though these are all the logs from the Windows Defender antivirus, we'll select those as well. This is reports, like error reports that go to Microsoft. If you want to delete those, you can potentially delete everything from here. Is it safe? So let's just ensure that we tick everything. Recycle bin, temporary files, and thumbnails. Okay, so that's the full 8.96. So we press OK, delete files, and it's going to clean up. Now this is very effective, guys, because when you clear those updates that are no longer used, you will notice hopefully quite a bit of data being removed. Now one thing that I do recommend after you run a disk cleanup is to defrag your hard drive, as there will be a lot of empty blocks on your hard disk, and this is just to organize all the files. Now bear in mind that if you have an SSD, that will not be possible, nor is it recommendable, as SSD drives don't like to be defragged. They have their own function called trim, but most SSD controllers will come with software that will automatically trim your hard drive and is when is needed. Okay, so I'll let this run in the background and we'll proceed with the final step of how to optimize your Windows 10. Now this is a pretty obvious one. Sorry, it's not an obvious one, but it's very handy when it comes to, for example, laptops. Now, the best thing for laptops is to have them, so don't drain your battery. So 9 out of 10 times you will have it on low performance, just to save battery, or to enable hibernation and things like that. So out of default, when you install Windows, it will put your power settings as balanced, and that's not bad, don't get me wrong. But if you want to give your Windows machine a bit more of a perk, then you would change the power setting. So in order to do that, we go again to the Windows machine, Windows Start menu, and from here we can type power. So here we go. We go to power and sleep settings. So let's do that. Now bear in mind, this is a virtual machine, so it's always plugged in. That's why it's not showing me the battery. If this was a laptop, you would have what happens when you have a battery and what happens when you have a screen. So once you're on this screen, what you have to do is on the right hand side, you'll see additional power settings. So let's click here. And from the additional power settings, essentially, you're going to get this prompt, where as you can see right now, it's on balance. So if you change this to high performance, okay, now obviously I've unhidden this because not every single machine has this, bear with me. Some providers, some machine manufacturers, HP is a culprit of that at times, will have that hidden, and they will have the balance, and they will have also like a HP recommended one, which is the one that they will set by default on their Windows installation, and they will disable the high performance one. So if you don't see it, doesn't mean there's something wrong with your computer. It may just mean that your computer manufacturer has disabled this. So let's take this and let's see what is available on the plan settings for high performance. So let's click on change plan settings. So one of the things that high performance does is that it puts everything to essentially the maximum. Okay, so if we go to the advanced power settings, for example, there we go. Okay, so as you can see here, these are the options that come. Some machines may have a bit more depending on the hardware that you have. But for example, you'll have the sleep, so this will be enabled. The USB settings will be all enabled. So basically, everything will be turned on, as this will use more juice. Well, actually, this one's not on. This is the alright. So this is the link state for your PCI. This is for your graphics card. So I don't have one because it's a virtual image. It has a virtual one, so it doesn't really matter. But everything will be active just to give it that extra oomph. So everything will be running at maximum specs. But that will also give you a bit of a boost on your machine. Okay, so let's see if the cleaning up finished. So let's just close this. It's still going. Right, I'm going to pause the video now because this is going to take a little bit. And then when it stops, essentially what's going to happen, this is going to disappear. But I'll resume when that happens. See you in a little bit. So there you have it. It's going now through the last process of removing the Windows updates. It's pretty much done everything else. So let's just wait a few moments till this concludes. So another option you can also choose, although I don't recommend you do this on your C drive, but let's say, for example, you have multiple drives, like you have your primary drive, which is an SSD, which that has your operating system and your applications, and then you have another hard drive, which is just, for example, your data. Then you can use the option to compress the drive to save disk space. Now, this, bear in mind, like I said, warning, do not run this on your C drive where your operating system is running, as that could potentially corrupt your Windows installation, and then you will have to start from scratch and reinstall everything. So once again, do not run this on your primary drive. It's absolutely fine to run this on your other drives that don't have operating system on it, and it will give you a bit more space. Now, obviously, because it has compression enabled on these drives, performance may be a bit lower. But if you have lots of images and videos and things like that can be compressed, that's a good way to gain extra space. It's not necessarily an optimization thing, but it's just something you can use instead of forking out for a new drive, and it'll buy you a bit more time. So let's just wait a little bit more until this finishes. And like I said, when you clean up your drive, if you have a normal SATA drive, I do recommend to run a defrag, especially if it's a lot of data that's being deleted. Otherwise, on SSDs, don't run this. Okay, so obviously this is not updated, so it's still showing us 34.4 gigabytes. But if we go OK here, we go to my PC, you'll see now that's cleaned up everything. Okay, so now we're only using 32.9. So it was updating as we went, but we essentially cleared 9 gigs, almost 8.6, I think it was, of information. So if you want to defrag this, which I will not, you just go to, if you go to Tools, and where it says Optimize and Defragment Drive, you just click on Optimize, and here you just select the drive you want and you click on Optimize. Now I won't do this because 9 gigs won't do any difference, and nonetheless Windows 10 does do this automatically for you. But if you cleared, a few amount of files, and yeah, I do recommend doing this. Okay, so that's the 5 tricks of how to optimize your Windows installation or your Windows 10 program. So feel free to drop any comments if you found this cool or you didn't like it. All comments are appreciated. Also, if there's something else you would like me to cover on a tutorial, feel free to drop down in the comments below, and that will give me a bit more ideas of what you people want. Well, thank you very much, and take care. Bye-bye. To get the latest tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until then, take care.